SJ, welcome to Muskogee Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. SJ, Stongo, Gary Fife, Jahu Jifkidos, Muskogee Radio, Mabo Hedjitowitz. Welcome to our program again this week. We're starting off a new year here, so everybody get used to saying 2020. And I understand law enforcement is saying be careful when you write that out. If you just use the numerals 20, that may cause a problem with somebody filling in a couple more numerals. So you want to fill out 2020. Anyway, there's our public service announcement for the morning. Starting us off this year, we've got an interesting combination of things. First of all, for those of you who are unable to attend the inauguration of our new Chief David Hill and Second Chief Del Beaver, we have some excerpts from the inaugural speeches of those gentlemen, just fragments of them, but Muskogee Media will have the full-fledged speeches up later on the website. Also, besides that, we have Mr. Billy Halton coming in. It's time for our annual All-Indian Livestock show, and he's going to fill us in on what they've got this year and kind of answer a few foolish city boy questions about raising livestock. And then in our third segment, we have returned to the discussion of the paranormal with Ms. Mary Franklin. She's going to come in and talk to us a little bit about her work and focus on a case or two to kind of give us an idea of what they're doing out there. But first of all, let's go to last Saturday, the 4th. This was at the Paradise Cove stage at the River Spirit Casino. The inauguration was a beautiful, elaborate event. My commendations to PR and the tourism folks for doing a wonderful job in putting that show together. But for those of you who weren't able to be there, here's just a few segments of some of the speeches.
Hisakitamisit pomitawan omitis hothitis hijikot ponchogon apokis solitawan hijaks ponhopoi dakit omax Puntapalkisikon, pinkalkasipikon, alfatski pakis, diktankin pomhoyo. Talilinan mehijiyov, agitecha kakis. Hisa kitamisin imin hotit o makis.
At this time, Supreme Court Vice Justice Miko George Thompson will swear in our second chief, Del Beaver.
Honey,
Del
Beaver.
Del Vince Beaver.
Hayomin.
Ponagayikchin.
Tinfatida.
Margedos.
Muskogee. Idawalgi. Miko. Sahokola. Wagida. Mehenmusin.
Savastatis.
Momen. Muskogee. Idawa. Imahaga. Imbaraga. Anyiktida. Angithida. O Morgusen. Ajayi Jalis. Congratulations.
When I decided to run for office, that was back in November of 2018. Little did I know the journey that was ahead for me and my family. I had no idea what was in store for us. But like any journey, sometimes we focus more on the destination itself than the journey. And when you slow down and you stop to enjoy the opportunities that God puts before you, you're going to be blessed. You are. But you have to slow down and stop and enjoy those opportunities, though. I'm sure there's some people out there that might have complained about having to go to another forum. I was one of them. I'm sure there might have been somebody out there that complained that we have to go walk in another parade. It's 95 degrees outside. I was one of them. But those are the opportunities that God gives us. Those are opportunities to meet our people. And, those are opportunities that we can take to talk with one another, opportunities to interact with one another, and to have fellowship with one another. So whether you win or lose, the opportunities to meet our people is awesome. It's awesome. And to me, that's my blessing. That is a blessing to me. And I love it. I truly love it. I love our nation, and I love our people. I just truly love it. And so when you think about the history of our people and what we went through, it would be easy. It'd be so easy for us to make excuses for failure. Oh, this happened to us. This happened to us. We don't make excuses around here. There's no excuses. That's not who we are as Muskogee people. We do not make excuses. The future of this nation lies in the foundation that our forefathers built. They didn't make excuses. There is no time for excuses. From the Muskogee Mountains in Georgia to the Muskogee Mountain in Muskogee, Oklahoma, we don't make excuses. We not only survived, but we are thriving. Look around you. Just look around you in this magnificent building that we have built. We've come a long way since the bingo halls. We've come a long way. Each generation of Muskogee people have built a layer of our foundation. Each one of you have built a layer for our foundation, a layer of resiliency, a layer of autonomy, a layer of sovereignty. Each one of us has contributed to that layer. So now that responsibility, though, lies with us. It lies with us. What are we going to do today to strengthen the future of our nation? That's our responsibility. What are we doing today? Not tomorrow, but today. I believe it starts with protecting our culture. I truly do. Protecting who we are as Muskogee people. We have to protect that. Protecting our language, protecting our faith, and protecting our families. That's what's important to me. That's what we have to protect. We have to start investing in more in who we are. Invest back into ourselves. This is a beautiful first-class resort. It is. It's a beautiful first-class resort. But this resort doesn't define who we are. It doesn't define us. The government, the federal government, doesn't define who we are. The state doesn't define who we are. As a sovereign nation, we define who we are. And that is non-negotiable. Non-negotiable. And believe me, Chief Hill and I, we're going to protect that at all costs. At all costs, we have to protect that. To our employees, I want to thank you for your time and dedication to the nation. I have worked side by side with many of you. I probably even shared a pot of coffee with a lot of you. We have heard your concerns. Chief Hill and I have already been out and about with the employees. We've heard your concerns. We've heard your ideas on how we can be better, ideas on how we can be more efficient, ideas on how we can provide a better service, and they're duly noted. They didn't go in one way or not the other. They are duly noted. But now it's time to go do it. We have to go do it. We're not going to settle for mediocrity. We're not. We can and will be better. So in closing, let us never forget where we came from. Let us never forget the trials and tribulations that our forefathers endured. But most importantly, let us never forget the responsibility we have today for the future of the nation. We have to start laying that foundation, strengthening that foundation for our future. So I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you for electing me your second chief. I'm so excited for this administration. I really am. I'm so excited. But I'm ready to get to work, and I hope you are too. God bless you. Mado.
Now, Supreme Court Justice Miko Thompson will swear in our Principal Chief, David Hill.
Ani
David Hill,
ayomi
Hanyoing,
punayikchi
Punayikti,
yikchi tinfatchida
Jimfachida,
mavedos
Magados,
Muskogee
Muskogee,
idawagi
Idawagi,
Mvskoke
Miko,
Wegida
Mwegida,
Mhenwusen
Mahinwazin,
Savastaris
Sevastagi,
Momen
Momen,
Muskogee
Muskogee,
Idawa
Idawa,
Imahava
Imahaga,
Imbarava
Imbodaga,
Anyiktsida
Anyiksida,
Angithida
Angitida,
O Magusan
O Mogazin,
Azahi Jatis.
Jahi Jahis.
Congratulations.
I am truly grateful to serve you as your principal chief during such a pivotal time in the history of our nation. As we come together to inaugurate our tribal leaders, and I stand here today on this beautiful resort built by our nation, built for our citizens, and built on our historic land. As I reminded that we are still here, Muskogee people are still here. Our ancestors survived the world's worst act in the country's history, our forced removal. Our ancestors survived broken promises, broken treaties, and broken intent to erase our Muskogee people from history. Yet your ancestors persevered despite the attempted dissolution of our tribal government. Our ancestors fought to bring us to the place of progress where we exist today. Our ancestors planted deep roots with seeds sowed by their love, and their descendants, we carry on new branches. We, the Muskogee Nation, are the outcome of the strength and the resiliency of those who came before us. Just as our ancestors brought us sacred fire from our homelands and passed it on to the next generation, today our former leaders pass that fire on to us. We have many issues facing our nation today, paramount issues that questions our sovereignty as a government and question our sovereign rights to our land, and that question our sovereign rights to build successful businesses that will financially support our own descendants. I am here to tell you we will use strong roots planted and the fire born unto us and to stand the battles facing our nation. The Muskogee Creek Nation will remain resolute, stand firm against attempts to weaken our nation. Whether it's at the state capitol or before the U.S. Supreme Court in Washington, D.C., I join the unified voice of our fellow tribal leaders and legal stance on the automatic renewal of the compact.
Welcome back to Muskogee Radio here on 1240 The Brew, 1240 AM and 106.3 FM here in beautiful downtown Old Muskogee. And it is a beautiful day today. And welcoming Mr. Billy Halton back to our studios today. He's got a familiar topic that he's going to be discussing with us, and that's the upcoming All-Indian Livestock Show. So welcome, Mr. Halton. Good to see you again.
Mr. Fife, it's always a pleasure to be able to have the opportunity to come and speak on the radio here and talk about the events that we're putting on as far as our agriculture youth and in all just to promote our agriculture youth program and the strength and the good things that we're doing for Creek youth in agriculture.
Well, first of all, let's start with when and where and the basic logistical kind of question.
The Muskogee Creek Nation All-Indian Livestock Show, and this will be our 7th annual. We hold it at Okemah, Oklahoma at the Okfuskee County Fairgrounds. We start with our sheep and goats on Friday night, and we start showing at 6:30 on Friday night. Saturday morning we start with our breeding gilt show, and then we'll follow that up with the market hog show, and usually that's an all-day event because we'll have 300 plus hogs there to show. Yes,
a lot of pork on the hoof there.
Yes, there is, and then of course Sunday, I hate to do anything on the Lord's Day other than go to church, but we have our livestock show, our heifer show in the afternoon on Sunday afternoon after church, and it's worked out really well for a lot of people because they're able to get in their morning worship and still be able to participate in the livestock show on Sunday afternoon, and that's at 1 o'clock.
Okay, well, it sounds like our Creator likes heifers.
Yes, definitely.
Livestock. Now, we say All-Indian Livestock Show, or let's talk about who's eligible to participate. Is it age limited, or is it kind of open door? Who can come and take place?
It is age limited. They have to be a senior in high school or younger. There is no bottom age. We tell them as long as that child has the ability to show that animal without any help in the ring, we don't care if they're 4 years old or 10 years old.
You ever had any 4 years old?
We had one last year, actually.
Oh, darn.
Yes. So we do get into some of the younger kids, and that's one of the good things about our show is that we are opened up age limit wise to those younger kids. At the same time, as far as the native qualification, of course, if you're in Muskogee Creek, we do not care where you live. You could live out of state. As long as you're a Creek, you're welcome to come. Other than that, we have to limit it to members of federally recognized tribes that live within one of the 11 counties within the Creek Nation jurisdiction.
Now, that particular limit there has become more important these days, like in art shows and other things, commerce kind of exhibitions. And I presume the applicant would have to be able to provide some sort of documentation or something?
Yes. What we do is we have a pre-entry on the bottom of our livestock show flyer that goes out in the Ag Youth Magazine, which is one of the main publications for agriculture youth in the state. On that, we have a form where they can fill out and pre-enter, and with that, they send in either their tribal citizenship card or a CDIB card verifying their native heritage, and then when they pre-enter, it does a couple of things. First of all, we give them a free T-shirt, and the reason we do is we like for them to pre-enter because it takes some of the administrative work out of what has to be done during the livestock show.
Right.
So we encourage them to pre-enter. If they don't pre-enter, when they show up that morning, along with their papers for their animals, they will have to provide their Native American heritage through some form of ID, whether it's a tribal citizenship card or a CDIB card. But yes.
Okay. The flyer you've put out lists what we call it, 3 categories. 3 divisions, let's say sheep and goats, market hogs and breeding gilts, and then heifers and steers. Now you picked out a segment of the livestock population. I presume there's no horses or something like that. But why these 3 areas, the sheep and goats, the hogs, and steers?
In the junior livestock show world in the state of Oklahoma, those are the animals that are shown. the horses actually go into more of an equine event, so it's not considered market livestock, so to speak. Livestock that's produced for the consumption of food.
Right.
And so that's the reason we limit it to those areas, and those are the areas that are supported strongly in our state through other livestock organizations, 4-H, FFA, as well as state fairs, the Oklahoma Youth Expo. Those are the same areas of animals that they would have.
Now, you mentioned some specific competitions there. Do these animals, these three types of animals, then represent the bulk of the kinds of things that our young people are interested in livestock, or is that like a market demand? Why these?
It is the interest of the young people, because when they grow up, whether they're in families that have shown livestock for years, or they are a ninth grade student just entering a high school FFA program, these are the three species, or the sheep goats, the market hogs, breeding gilts, the heifers, the steers. Those are the areas that are the most popular. They have the biggest interest of everybody, and consequently, upon graduation or ending into adulthood, many of these young people that are going to be involved in agriculture will pursue one of these areas as far as livestock is concerned.
Okay, let me ask you a city boy question here. What is a breeding gilt?
A breeding gilt is a female swine that has yet to produce a litter of pigs. They're judged a little bit different than the market hogs in that, because they're breeding gilts, we look for things more maternal in them than we do a market hog. We look at their underlines. They need to have 6 evenly spaced teats. They need to be reproductively sound. They need to be sound on their feet and legs. So it's kind of a different criteria for the gilts than it is the market hogs.
Okay, so this is not the category for Arnold Ziffel from Green Acres.
Arnold Ziffel would go more into the market hog category. He sure would.
All right. The popularity of breeding livestock is, I think, extremely important to the Muskogee Nation, us being kind of a rural a tribe located in a rural area, a lot of farmers and ranchers and this kind of thing. And these animals, as you said, are meant for the market, for sales to I don't know.
Their end point will be the process for the consumption of food.
Okay,
the
now
biggest part of it.
Right at these shows, who buys these animals?
Well, these animals are not really for sale. These kids will show this same group of animals clear through the middle of March. And then at that time, the market animals, of course, will be sent off to market, whereas the breeding animals will be kept at home to reproduce and provide that next generation of animals.
Right, so that's the point where a big company that specializes in meat products would be looking and purchasing.
Yes, and a lot of some of the bigger shows, such as OYE in the past, they've actually had it was a terminal show where all of the market animals that go to that show are automatically sent to a processing facility.
Now here's a silly question: at the end of the year, when this process starts to take place, is it difficult to separate the breeder from the breedee? I mean, these kids, no, I don't want to give up my hog, this kind of thing.
There's usually a few tears shed, but the biggest part of them understand what's happening in the cycle of life, and that we depend on those animals for our own good and well-being. And again, a few tears are shed, but for the most part, it's a fairly good disconnect.
Right, they understand this is the purpose. I mean, you're not going to raise them as pets.
Right.
Now, the show, I understand, has been drawing more interest each year. What kind of numbers do you looking at?
The first year, Gary, this is our 7th annual. Our first year, we had 168 total animals. Last year, we had over 300 head of hogs by itself. Our biggest growth actually last year was in our heifer division, where we moved from about 25 to 30 heifers to over 60. So that was moving our cattle show to Sunday afternoon. I think helped that a lot, because it frees them up to be there at that particular time.
Right, they can focus on that particular show.
Yes.
Now, requirements to participate? I think you mentioned a few, federally recognized or a member of the Muskogee Nation. Are there any other kinds of things that people need to know if they're considering taking part?
Well, I tell a lot of people, the questions I get are, how many can we bring as far as animals? And I tell people, as long as you have the money to enter them, I'm not really concerned with how many you bring.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big question, and it's helped our numbers because a lot of shows will limit them to, say, 3 head of hogs or 3 head of cat, where we just let them come. And that's continued with the growth, but it's just really gained popularity through the years. There's a segment of our showing industry that a lot of families will show at their local show, they will show at their county show, and then they will show at like the Muskogee Regional Show.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really kind of the only 3 shows that they have gone to in the past, whereas we've been doing this long enough, the same time, the last weekend of January, every year, that now those same groups of families have just scheduled us as one of the 4 shows that they're planning on attending, and it's really helped us.
Is this show recognized nationally? I mean, is it ranked there in the top 10 in the country?
We are the 2nd largest All-Indian Livestock show in the United States.
And that's important to underline that All-Indian, right?
Yes, All-Indian.
Okay, great. Now, I think we need to probably hit on the logistics once more. We're going to have to move on, I guess. First of all, the dates and times.
It'd be January the 24th, 25th, and 26th. That's a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We show our sheep and goats at 6:30, and this all happens at Okemo, Oklahoma at the Mvskoke County Fairgrounds. We'll start Saturday morning at 9:30 with our breeding gilt show and continue with our market hog show upon completion of the gilts. We'll take a break. We'll be back Sunday afternoon to show our cattle, and we'll start with the heifers at 1 o'clock, and they'll be followed by the steers.
How would you mark success if someone is actively involved in breeding livestock? What's the goal, I suppose?
Success is measured on a lot of different levels, depending upon what level of success. We have people that do this on a year-round basis, I should say, that are extremely competitive, that spend quite a few dollars, that go on almost a weekly basis to a livestock show. Their level of success is probably measured a little differently than a young person that maybe it's their 1st or 2nd year, and their goal is simply maybe to get a ribbon.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a huge spectrum from top to bottom as far as those that are extremely competitive to those who are just getting started in it, and what their definition of success depends strictly on them.
Okay, and it's not a cheap process.
It's not a cheap process. There's my saying on that is, you can pay for your child's education now, and you can be involved in their life and see who their friends are and raise them in a great attitude of people where they learn a lot of good, valuable life skills. Or you cannot do that and wait for them to get in trouble, and you can spend that same amount of money on an attorney getting them out of trouble.
Okay. How would someone get in touch with you if they're interested?
My phone number is 918-732-7628. It's on the livestock show flyer, and of course I'm on the Creek Nation website, so and I welcome any and all calls.
Okay, thank you, Billy Halton. We appreciate you taking time to come down and chat with us a little bit. We wish you success with that show. Okay. Welcome back to Muskogee Radio here on 1240 The Brew. That's 106.3 FM and 1240 The Brew. And just in case anybody is interested in listening to our show online, it is live on the Brew's website. So check it out, 1240thebrew.com. And of course, we archive each program that we can on YouTube. So check us out on the Muskogee Radio website on YouTube. We'd like to welcome into our studios now Ms. Mary Franklin. She is a Native woman who's spent some time in all kinds of professions, but one in particular on the paranormal and some of the kind of things that that happen that we can't see, can't understand, can feel, and are aware of, whether we know it or not. So first of all, welcome to the program, Ms. Franklin. We appreciate you taking time.
I want to thank you for having me, Mr. Fife. It's been an interesting story of murdered by human wolves.
Okay, let me finish fiddling with the microphone there. We understand, of course, that this is a subject that people can get a little weird about, or frightened, or intensely interested in, and one that you spend a lot of time in doing and looking at. So first of all, let's find out a bit about yourself and how it connects with this particular subject.
Well, I'm traditional Native American. My father was Creek and Cherokee, and my grandmother was Creek and Nachi. And growing up, you hear all the ghost stories. You hear about the skinwalkers, creatures of the night, dogmen. And I was born with very long hair, and I think my grandmother's goal was to see if she could get it to stand straight up. And as I was growing up, I thought, this can't exist. And I would tell them, I said, you're all crazy. When I get big enough, I'm going to prove there are no ghosts or skinwalkers. And so I began to listen and study. And I thought, there's a reality here that can't be explained.
Mm-hmm.
And as I got older, I thought, well, I'm going to do some research, because now I have questions. And being around the stomping grounds, you hear these stories. And when I was 18 years old, I decided to take some studies at one of the universities and got into physics as well, and took a course in ghostology. And I thought, okay, there's a fine line here. But I had to look at things in a scientific way. And as a nurse, when I got into the murder by human wolves, I knew anatomy that shape-shifting was impossible.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot morph over into something we're not. But then when you look at the human body, if somebody has a lung removed and 1 inch of lung is left, it will regrow a new lung. We can regenerate our liver. We can reproduce some of our internal organs. And one of my professors said, there are parallel universes out there in string theory. Said, are you so close-minded that there couldn't be a reality that's unexplainable? He said, panda bears were a myth until 1958, where they were discovered in China.
Gorillas?
Yes, gorillas.
Now, let me take this in a slightly different direction. Now, you mentioned a beginning in your educational process where you were pretty much a skeptic as far as things that were beyond the normal occurrence, supernatural, sometimes beyond the ordinary. A lot of different phrases to describe it. And in doing that, hearing you say that, I was thinking, well, yeah, I kind of fall into the same categories. And being a reporter, you got to be skeptical. But you were convinced, and I'm still skeptical, but I'm always felt that there was something going on that we couldn't understand. And I think, what is it then that made you feel like there was a whole lot more going on than we are aware of?
Well, first, I'm the biggest skeptic you're brought on to. You have to be in this field. Not everything is a haunting. Not everything is paranormal. You look for the logic before you look for the illogic. And once you find that field of illogic, then you do your research. I have a curiosity. I have questions, I guess, that normal people don't have.
Yeah.
And I want to find those answers. I will never prove to the world there are ghosts. There's Bigfoot, Loch Ness. Those are all urban legends and stories told around campfires.
Well, let me toss this one out for you and see what you think. My experience with these kinds of things is, I would say, pretty limited. And my wife and I moved into my parents' home after he needed help and then passed on. And we were sitting in our living room one night watching TV, just the usual sorts of thing. And all of a sudden, the overhead light in the dining room came on. And I was thinking, well, there are 2 or 3 different possible explanations here. One, there's a short in the switch. 2, the pull string just suddenly slipped out of place and turned the light on. 3, we might have had a power surge, although I didn't see it anywhere else. Or 4, there's somebody from our family, particularly my father, reminding me that he was still around in one sense or another. And I never dismissed really any of those possibilities. And of course, I think my wife is far more sensitive than I. And she said, "Yeah, it's probably your dad." Yeah, I think so. So when you hear something like that, what do you think is, which of those possibilities comes to mind?
First, if I was looking at that case, I would be looking at the electrical sources. I would be ruling out everything that could have caused that before I went into the paranormal, when I couldn't explain it. But if it's an ongoing thing, like the light comes on every night or every day without anybody near it, then I would be looking at some type of electrical source that would be creating the problem. But do I believe our loved ones come back? I believe they do.
Yeah. I've heard several people relate similar kinds of stories, not with a light, but a sound or a laugh or something that struck them as not being part of the usual routine. Now, was there a particular situation that convinced you that you needed to spend time and energy examining these kinds of phenomena?
It was looking for the right answers, because there's always the skeptics out there. When you stop and realize we live right in the heartland of Bible Belt, and I was raised traditional Native American, but we had the Christian side as well. And I don't know, up until Kanawha, I didn't believe in anything. None of the things existed out there. That was my awakening door. This is where my grandmother could have stood and seen my hair stand straight up.
Oh my. Now let's take a moment there and focus on Kanawha. What is this situation where, what happened? What did you see? That sort of thing.
Well, I was contacted by a friend of mine who was a paranormal investigator, and he had gotten an email about the headstone. And I'd done a quick research site, and there was nothing posted about it. So I told Richard, I said, well, I'll go down next weekend and see if I can locate it. I said, it's probably just urban legend. I'm going to debunk it and we'll move on. So I contacted the police department. They knew nothing of the headstone. And a friend of mine, who's Creek Indian, knew the area, and he decided he would go with me. So I called the police, told them I'd be there on Saturday. Well, I went on Friday afternoon. I wanted to get a scope of the town before I went in the next morning with equipment. And as we turned to go into Kanawha, you go through a little town called Wolf. Well, my eyebrows kind of went up. I thought, okay. And as we're approaching Kanawha, over on the right is this massive gray wolf. And it's less than 10 feet from the road. And I thought, that's a wolf. And it never moved. It made contact with us. They're eye on eye. And I'm actually rolling my video cam at this time with this wolf. And I watched this wolf till we got almost over the hill, and it turns and lopes off into the woods. And I thought, okay, we've seen a wolf. And the name of the town was Wolf. Maybe it's their mascot. So as we got into Kanawha, it's getting dark. And I know that law is daylight to dusk. You cannot be in a cemetery. I just wanted to locate it. So as we're entering to Kanawha, I noticed the absence of animals around the farms, and I thought, well, maybe they put their cattle up. As we entered Kanawha, the lights were off in the homes. It's like 7:30 in the afternoon. No children, no people out. all the stores are closed. And I thought, well, that's a little odd. And so as we near the cemetery, my friend wanted to know if I wanted to go in. I said no, not till I check in with the police and let them know I'm here. And I said, I'm not here to break a law. They have no accommodation, so we go back to Ada. Well, there's a little store that sits there, and I go in and there's teenagers. Teenagers know everything about ghosts, about anything. So I approached them, told them who I was, and I said, have you seen the headstone? Well, they all had seen the headstone. They're all talking at once. And as they're telling me, where the headstone was, well, as we had pulled up outside the cemetery, Violet sits on the right, Kanawha sits on the left of the road, and it's on a dirt road. But there was a small shack sitting there with bifold doors. I thought, well, that's the caretaker shack. He'll know where this headstone is if it exists. I'll hit him up in the morning. Well, I asked the kids, I said, well, from the caretaker shack, where's the headstone? Oh, no, lady, there's no shack in there. I said, no, I've seen a shack, and so this goes on for a few minutes. And this little Indian male, he's security guard, is standing there taking all this in. And finally I thought, well, these kids don't know what they're talking about. They kept talking about a flagpole. And I thought, I didn't see the flagpole, but I seen the shack. And as I'm leaving, the security guard approaches me and touches me on the shoulder. And he goes, ma'am, he says, I know you're Native American, and you've heard all the old stories. He goes, there's things out in the woods here that you need to be aware of that will take your life. And I asked him, I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, you just need to be careful. So I thought, okay, there's a man after my grandmother's heart,
Oh, boy.
And so the next morning, went in and I met with the police and, asked them about their town. The dispatch was Native American. He was the friendliest, and the mayor. But the one officer was very rude to me. He kept telling me about bodies being found constantly in the cemetery, and it was a body dump. And, he goes, what are you doing here in Kanawha? And I said, I'm just here to debunk a headstone, sir. And still everybody denied that the headstone existed. I go out to the cemetery, spent 6 hours walking, looking at every headstone. Broke for lunch, went to the little restaurant downtown, and I get to talking to some of the locals. And immediately again I'm warned, stay out of the woods. There are things out there that will kill you. And I said, well, what do you mean by this? I mean, do you have cougars, bears? And they said, no, it's what you would not understand, but be very careful. And I get this overpowering feeling that Kanawha doesn't want me in Kanawha. So I finally found the headstone. It existed. My jaw dropped. And I took pictures of it. These are some of the photos.
All right, what she's passed over to me is a couple of 8x10s. One is a focus of your usual gray, what would this be, marble?
Granite,
granite
headstones.
And the name is Cross, March 13, 1899, is that right? October 10, 1917, I guess is the day. And underneath it says, murdered by human wolves. And the other photo is a pair of 4x5s saying cross, and also showing the same inscription, murdered by human wolves. Whoa. Now this, everyone has pretty much denied this thing existed.
Right.
And you went out there yourself and you found it.
I did.
After an extensive search?
Yes. And it was 30 minutes. I had 30 minutes left of sunlight when I found this headstone. I thought, well, I've got to shoot video and audio at least.
Mm-hmm.
So, and my cousin who went with me is a Miko of Arbika, so he can't be in the cemetery. But he's my bodyguard out on the road. And so I set my cameras up. I've got one in front and one behind. So we're doing a 360 that you can see nobody around me. I do some quick questions. My first question was, Catherine, did you live in Kanawha?
Now, when you say questions, these were questions
EVPs, yeah, electrical voice phenomena.
like at the grave or
Yeah,
at
I've
the
got-
head? Okay.
I've got meters and I've got recorders set out. And my second question was, Catherine, were you murdered by a man? Next question, Catherine, were you murdered by an animal? And I did like 15 random quick questions, waiting a minute in between each one. And I thought, well, I've never gotten an EVP. I've never gotten any data to this point. Okay, the headstone exists. And I thought, well, okay, I'm gathering up equipment after 30 minutes, trying to beat the sun. And I thought, well, I'm going to turn this recorder on and listen to it that was on Catherine's grave. And the first two questions come out. I hear my voice, thinking, okay, I've got the hillbilly drawl here. And the third question is, Catherine, were you murdered by an animal? A few seconds later, a soft female voice comes on and says, no, a man, Doc Yates. I stopped and I looked around and said, dear Lord, I'm the only one in this cemetery. Where did that come from? So I roll it back and I listen again. And it's a Class A EVP, Doc Yates. The next question was for Sarah Cross, who is right beside her, and it says mother, and I didn't know if that was Catherine's grandmother or mother at that time. And so I asked Catherine's grandmother, which I did find out later. I said, are you her mother or her grandmother? And on the audio, it was so loud. You don't hear any of this, but it was so loud my cameras even picked it up. It sounds like an F5 tornadic wind. This male guttural voice is telling me to get out of the cemetery. Very profane. He's threatening me. He says, I'll come up out of this grave and I will kill you. He's raging. And I'm standing there shaking. It's like, where did all this come from?
Oh, my.
And so I went on ahead and wrapped everything up, stopped at the police station. The mayor was sitting there. And he said, did you get anything? And I played it for him. Oh, and by the way, the shack wasn't there when we went back.
Oh, boy.
I looked at my cousin. I said, there was a shack there, wasn't there? He goes, yes, there was last night. Well, the mayor got to telling me some stories of Kanawha. A few years earlier, him and his deputies have to dig the graves out of the cemetery. And he said one evening while they were digging graves, he said the deputy had gotten down far enough to stop, and once this ball of fire comes up and chases him across the cemetery. And I'm thinking, okay, that could be marsh gas or, some kind of gas phenomena. And then he talks about the organ music, the church music you'll hear outside the cemetery. And then he talks about the old bar that's set, because Kanawha was flooded out. Kanawha, many questions. He did give me permission to come in do a night. And he told dispatch and the police officers, if the lady wants to come in anytime, you let her in. So I made arrangements to be back in a few weeks, and I did a night. It was a clear night. There was no moon out. As we got ready to investigate, and I was going to play the recording on my recorder, which I wish I had dubbed it off, but I didn't. And my recorder exploded in my hand and went into shrapnel across the cemetery. The massive video recorder that I took down that belonged to my friend, it exploded as well. So we had backup equipment, and I thought, well, what would have caused that? So I sent the team out at the cemetery, and I wanted to do a photo shoot. And as I'm photo shooting, I get halfway through, and I get scared. I thought, you don't get scared. What is wrong with you? So I took a deep breath and kept walking. And I was using 35 millimeter, 400 speed film at that time. And I had several cameras. I'd stop and take 2 pictures, take 2 more pictures. And the next day, after we left Kanawha, I took my film down to a lady that done all my photos at Walgreens. She knew what I expected. And right where I had become terrified, you'll notice that it's a clear night, but I'm getting some kind of spectral here. Every camera, every 2 photos produced these anomalies that I cannot explain away.
All right. Now, these are photos taken in a cemetery, and there appears to be 1, 2, let's call it 2.5 figures there, brown contrasting with what looks to be thick fog, if that's the best way I can describe it. And these would represent or photos of spirits or entities or some kind of power there?
I don't know what it is, but to this day I cannot explain it. It's like I said, because the lady was excited, and I have multiple photos where these anomalies. Now, it's like I said, there's no moon.
Right. Now, has anyone who's looked at these given you any idea of what's there? No one?
No one.
No one knows what it is, but there's definitely something there.
There's something there. I mean, I can't explain it away. I know the night was clear. There was no fog. Actually, I'm standing here on the road. This is the roadway.
Okay.
And that's the bridge back here where Conway used to be. And then you see it when you turn it. It's just amazing. And it's like I said, these are multiple photos that followed me through.
3 lights against the dark background.
Yeah. And so I thought, what have I gotten here? What is it that occurs? And then a gentleman that heard of my case sent me this photo that was taken in a church.
Oh, gosh, it looks like a shadowy outline of a wolf.
Yeah, but it's got a human shape.
Or a combination of the 2.
Yeah.
Now, it looks like that there are pews behind it or some sort of a framework. And what is that, an altar up front or just a stage?
No, that was taken in church. And,
boy.
Yeah. Anyway, after I did the night, I became ill. And ended up being in the hospital with several types of pneumonias.
Gosh.
And my son had gotten married in Minnesota, and we missed the wedding. And of course, he brings his wife down, and they're like 7 miles from the Canadian border. Well, my daughter-in-law automatically thinks I'm nuts because I hunt ghosts. And so when she looks at how I collect data and the equipment, and she goes, "Well, Mom, take me out on a ghost hunt." I said, "Well, we can go to my family cemeteries, out in the woods. Nobody bothers you. There's no houses around." So again, I call up my cousin Miko. I said, "Go with me. Bring a gun. We have wildlife out there. We don't shoot them, but we have cars to get into." So I'm setting up the equipment. My kids are standing in the middle of the cemetery. And Miko's out on the road, and he's got my equipment that you can see things at night. It reflects heat.
Infrared.
Infrared, yes. And he's not seeing anything. And my hair's up on the back of my neck. And it's like, something there's watching. So I hear this big twig break behind me, and you hear me say on audio, "Get in the car, and, don't run, don't look up." So you hear the 4 car doors, because I got audio running. And as we get in, it's 15 seconds to the moment. A pack of wolves go off. A massive pack of wolves.
Which are unknown in Oklahoma. Huh?
No, it is not dogs, it's not coyotes. I'm an old country girl. And so I know, well, at least I'm getting this on recording, and this lasts for quite a bit. My daughter-in-law's climbing the ceiling of the car. I said, "We're fine. We're in our vehicles, we can leave." And my cousin and I are on a walkie-talkie, and he goes, "What do you want to do?" I said, "We'll sit here 30 minutes. Let's let this run." I said, I'll get out and gather the equipment and we'll leave. So we did. Gathered up the equipment, we left. Got home, played the recording. My dog broke the window when the wolves began to howl and went outside.
Trying to get out?
Did get out, broke the window.
Oh, my God.
And so the next day my team came down. We had an investigation in Muskogee. And
Well, now, we've only got a couple of minutes here left. Were there any conclusions that developed out of this?
I have got multiple people, doctors, lawyers, United States deputy marshals that have had encounters with this beast.
Wow.
And sightings across America. I mean, I've got an actual footprint photograph of a 14-inch footprint of a wolf. That is, and I've never seen one. Do they exist? 20 years ago I told you no. Today I'll tell you I don't know.
Oh, boy. Yeah, I've seen a couple of photographs on the web. One of a figure at some distance walking upright. And you look at it and you think, well, that's not exactly a man, but it's not exactly a bear, and kind of looks wolf-like. And then one of a very blurry face looking in the window. And that gives you a chill right there. You know, it just kind of runs up your spine. Mary, we're going to have to come back and revisit this subject, sit down and talk again. So I hope that you'll be able to find some time in the future to come back to Muskogee Radio. It's just that we're out of time here, and we just barely scratched the surface, I think. But in the meantime, Mary Franklin, thank you so much for coming in. As I say, we will continue this discussion at some point.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, let me do a couple of quick announcements, and we'll get our tails out of here, literally and figuratively, and one that hopefully isn't attached to a wolf. And I'm Wolf Clan, by the way. 2020 Muskogee Creek Nation Volunteer Income Tax VITA program, sponsored by the Department of Commerce. It's tax time again. And they're there to help anyone file taxes. Any Muskogee County resident who makes under $54,000, which I don't live in Okmulgee County, but I would otherwise qualify. And the program is starting January 13th through April 15th, 9 to 4 on Tuesday through Thursday in the Commerce Building here on the tribal campus. And so you might want to get a hold of them and see about getting some assistance, what they can and can't do, and some ideas about the new tax programs and things that we're always having to face all the time. Secondly, we have the Summer Youth Program coming up for Native American youth ages 16 to 21. You can apply now, and I suggest you do that because it fills up pretty good. Apply online at bit.ly/MCNSY2020, and they're accepting applications from December 1st last year through March 31st of this year. So for more information, contact 918-732-7773 or eta@mcn-nsn.gov. So if you want to get that young one to work and get him familiar with the job market, he'll be part of the rest of his life, her life. Get a hold of them and get help you get started. Anyway, it's time for me to get out of here. We appreciate you being with us here on Muskogee Radio, and join us again next week, and we'll be back with more news and views from Muskogee country. Mado Madbo Hedgetsgut. You've been listening to Muskogee Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. Mado.